President Lee Jae-myung and Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi held a summit in Japan's Nara Prefecture on Tuesday, where the two sides agreed to broaden their cooperation on the economy, society, culture, AI, and supply chains. The final hearing of former President Yoon Suk Yeol's insurrection trial is still ongoing, amid keen interest in the level of punishment he'll face for his botched martial law order, including the possibility of the death penalty. The Iranian authorities have significantly intensified their lethal crackdown on protesters, including the near-complete shutdown of internet services, while the Trump administration is reportedly considering military action against Iran. We begin in Japan tonight, where this afternoon President Lee Jae-myung and Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi held their second summit. Our Blue House correspondent Song Yoo-jin, who is traveling with the president, joins us live from Osaka, where the Korea Press Center is located. Yoo-jin, what is the latest?
Right. Good evening, Tommy. So President Lee Jae-myung has just one official engagement left for today, which is attending a dinner hosted by Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi. Now, as we wait for the details from the Blue House, upon arriving here in Osaka this morning, President Lee traveled straight to Nara Prefecture, which is Prime Minister Takaichi's hometown, for their second summit talks. The summit began with a closed-door restricted session, including a small number of aides, followed by an expanded meeting, and then a joint press briefing. Now, the summit appears to have been held in a warm and friendly atmosphere. Take a listen to the two leaders.
각별히 파격적인 환대를 해주시고 한일 관계 개선을 위해서 온몸을 던지다시피 특별한 배려를 해주신 총리님께 깊은 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 고맙습니다.
I am delighted to welcome President Lee to Nara, a place he said he wanted to visit during our last summit. Since taking office, this is the first time I have invited a foreign leader to Nara. I believe this reflects the friendship and trust between President Lee and me.
So, according to Blue House spokesperson Kim Nam-jun, the level of protocol was notably elevated, with Prime Minister Takaichi surprisingly receiving President Lee herself upon his arrival in Nara, as well as a large-scale security presence of thousands from the airport to the Nara prefecture.
I see. Yoo-jin, now you mentioned Lee and Takaichi held summit talks earlier this afternoon. Tell us more about the summit's major outcomes.
So what stood out was what President Lee described as a, quote, small but meaningful progress in sensitive historical issues, particularly the Jose coal mine. This is where more than 100 forcibly mobilized Korean laborers and Japanese were killed in a flooding accident in 1942.
80여 년이 지난 작년 8월에서야 유해가 처음으로 발굴된 바가 있습니다. 양국은 동유해의 신원 확인을 위한 DNA 감정을 추진하기로 하고 구체 사항에 대해서는 당국 간 실무적 협의를 진행하기로 하였습니다.
We welcome the progress being made between our two countries on cooperation for DNA testing related to the remains discovered at the Jose coal mine in Ube, Yamaguchi Prefecture.
Moving on to security, Lee and Takaichi agreed on the importance of bilateral cooperation and trilateral coordination with the United States to maintain regional stability, including achieving complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. And there was also a mention of China. President Lee's visit this time drew more attention, coming a week after he met with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing at a time of heightened tensions between Beijing and Tokyo, following Prime Minister Takaichi's remarks on Taiwan. In the joint press briefing, President Lee emphasized the need for South Korea, China, and Japan to find as much common ground as possible and to continue communication and cooperation. Now, as President Lee wraps up his first day in Japan tomorrow, he will first visit the Horyuji Temple together with Prime Minister Takaichi, which is one of Japan's most iconic landmarks, to further build personal rapport. After that, he will wrap up his visit by having lunch with the local Korean community. Tommy?
Thank you, Yoo-jin, for the coverage. Now, in other news, South Korea has successfully completed the flight test of the KF-21 fighter jet that is under development. This was according to the State Arms Procurement Agency on Tuesday. Since the rollout of the very first prototype in April 2021, the KF-21 completed more than 1,600 flight tests without any accidents. The agency plans to complete the development in the first half of this year and deliver the very first batch of the country's homegrown aircraft to the Air Force in the second half. And just a few weeks ago, South Korea relaxed its decades-long restrictions on North Korea's publications, starting with the main newspaper, Rodong Sinmun. Our Kim Bo-kyung went to see how easier that access has become.
The North Korean regime's publications were long considered difficult or even prohibited to access in the South. Classified as special publications, they required special procedures to read. Now those procedures are being relaxed. For the first time since the National Intelligence Service restricted access 55 years ago, South Korea has reclassified North Korea's state-run Rodong Sinmun newspaper as a general publication.
From today, when visiting institutions that handle special materials, you can read Rodong Sinmun just like a regular publication without any separate identity verification or application procedures.
The Rodong Sinmun, the state-run daily newspaper, is a way to peek into the policy directions that the ruling Workers' Party of Korea makes.
Because North Korea is a party state, the party holds supremacy over the state, determining the basic direction of all policies. Since the Rodong Sinmun is the party's official newspaper, it can be considered North Korea's most authoritative official media outlet.
Currently, over 181 institutions nationwide hold copies of the newspaper, including the Unification Ministry's Information Center on North Korea and the National Library of Korea.
This is one of the institutions where the public can easily read the regime's state-run newspaper. As you can see, this December 12th version says North Korean leader Kim Jong-un presided over the party's enlarged plenary session to prepare for a key party congress.
Without identity verification, visitors to these institutions can just read the paper placed on open shelves and even print it out without making any separate request.
그럼 몇 년도부터 지금 이 서가에는 배치가 되어 있는 걸까요?
저희가 과거에 노동신문은 마이크로필름 형태로 소장하고 있었습니다. 그게 1946년 12월분부터 1965년 7월분까지는 그렇게 마이크로필름 형태로 소장돼 있었고 65년 8월부터 이제 저희가 종이 자료로 왔기 때문에 그때부터 현재까지는 이제 재본된 형태로 있다고 보시면 됩니다.
Now that the regime's main newspaper is easier to access, experts say it gives people a better chance to understand the regime.
Starting with the Rodong Sinmun, this could be the first step toward opening up more information on North Korea.
The government is aiming to expand public access to other North Korean materials and websites through cooperation with other government agencies and the National Assembly. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
At the Seoul Central District Court, the extended sentencing hearing for former President Yoon Suk Yeol opened earlier on Tuesday and is still ongoing. We connect with our reporter Oh Soo-young to hear the latest on his insurrection trial. Soo-young, let's start with the main charges against Yoon and what kind of sentence is expected for the former president?
Sure, Tammy. The sentencing hearing in former President Yoon Suk Yeol's insurrection trial began at around 9:30 this morning, and it's still ongoing, as you said. The special counsel is expected to present its final opinion and sentencing recommendation a little bit later. Yoon is, of course, charged with leading an insurrection by declaring emergency martial law without meeting constitutional or statutory requirements, and then deploying military and police forces to the National Assembly and other key institutions. Under the Criminal Act, the statutory punishment for leading an insurrection is limited to 3 options, which are death penalty, life imprisonment without labor, or life imprisonment with labor. And according to local reporting, the special counsel is not considering imprisonment without labor, which narrows down the decision really to whether to seek the death penalty or life imprisonment with labor. The conclusion is expected to be presented today after the former president delivers his final statement, which hasn't started yet. Yoon's long-standing position, of course, has been that he took a constitutional action in response to what he describes as a national crisis, including legislative actions by the opposition at the time. Yoon may again describe what he did was a warning or a message that's distinct from a full-fledged martial law. The Constitutional Court previously rejected these arguments in its impeachment ruling last year, but today's hearing determines how the criminal court evaluates them under the Criminal Act.
Now, Soo-young, again, last Friday was supposed to be the final hearing, but proceedings were delayed to Tuesday today, but it's still continuing as we speak.
Yes, that's right. So the courts plan to conclude all arguments today last week on January 9th. And the hearing then began that morning and lasted roughly 15 hours, ending shortly after midnight. And a significant portion of that time, around 8 hours, was taken up by evidence examination from the defense for former Defense Minister Kim Yong-yeon, one of the co-defendants. As a result, the special counsel was unable to present its sentencing request, and arguments were not formally closed. Thus, the presiding judge has made it clear that the next hearing, this one, must end no matter what. However, proceedings today have already stretched on for much more than 8 hours, with the defense's arguments continuing all throughout the afternoon. The defense for former President Yoon has told the court that it prepared at least 8 hours of substantive defense, but as of the late afternoon and as of now, it's only completed a part of it. The presiding judge has repeatedly urged the defense to speed up and ask that arguments conclude by around 7 p.m., which again haven't happened yet. So the pace really has caused the special counsel's sentencing request scheduled after the defense to be delayed. So we're still waiting for that. The verdict by the court is widely expected to be issued in February.
The ruling Democratic Party elected three-term lawmaker Byung-do as its new floor leader on Sunday, tasking him with stabilizing a party shaken by allegations. With his 4-month term already underway, attention is returning to whether he can drive key special prosecutor bills through the National Assembly while managing internal risks ahead of June's local elections. For more, we turn to our political correspondent, Moon Hae-ryun. Welcome back, Hae-ryun.
Good evening, Tommy.
So, Hae-ryun, let's first look at how the leadership change came about, and why was Han chosen, and what kind of situation is he stepping into at the moment?
So as you said, Byung-do was elected as the DP's new floor leader on Sunday after a runoff vote against fellow three-term lawmaker Baek Hae-ryun, emerging as the compromise figure at a time when the party urgently needs stability. The by-election itself was triggered by the resignation of former floor leader Kim Byung-gi, who stepped down amid allegations linked to illegal nomination donations. The fallout from those allegations has left the Democratic Party facing internal distrust and external pressure, particularly from the main opposition People Power Party, which has seized the controversy to question the ruling party's legitimacy. Most recently, Han worked as head of situation management during Lee's early presidential campaign, reinforcing his image as a trusted insider. His election signals the party's desire for crisis management rather than experimentation, but he inherits a floor leadership with only 4 months left in its term, running until mid-May, leaving him very little room for error.
Right. And one of Han's first moves has been to signal strong legislative action. Now, what exactly is being planned for the upcoming National Assembly session then?
So as you've said, Han has made it very clear that he intends to move fast and very quickly. And he announced that the Democratic Party will push to pass the second comprehensive special prosecutor bill at the Assembly's plenary session scheduled for this Thursday. Now that bill expands on previous investigations into the December 3rd emergency martial law incident and related cases, reopening areas that lawmakers argue were insufficiently examined during earlier probes. Now the bill has already cleared the Legislation and Judiciary Committee's Agenda Coordination Subcommittee under Democratic Party leadership and is expected to be tabled at the plenary session after passing a full committee review. Now, under the revised proposal, the Council's investigation period would last up to 170 days, including preparation time, with an expanded team of special investigators and reduced reliance on seconded prosecutors, a change meant to address concerns about prosecutorial bias. However, the situation is more complicated complicated when it comes to the Unification Church Special Prosecutor Bill. Although Han initially vowed to pass both measures together, the party now acknowledges that the Unification Church Bill will not be ready in time for the plenary session due to stalled negotiations with the opposition.
This bill aims to fully uncover the truth behind the insurrection. The DP will pass the second comprehensive special prosecutor bill at the plenary session on the 15th.
They ignore probes into those in power while pursuing punitive investigations into already fallen figures.
Then, Hwacheon, beyond these special prosecutor bills, what are some biggest challenges that Han faces during his rather short term?
So the challenge seems to be balancing everything at once and doing everything very quickly, because Han's 4-month term actually coincides with the run-up to the June 3rd local elections, which is the first nationwide electoral test of the Yi administration. So any misstep, whether in handling internal scandals or pushing controversial legislation, could directly affect voter sentiment. But at the same time, Han must juggle reform legislation and bread-and-butter economic issues. Judicial reform bills, including changes to court structures and legal accountability, are being pushed aggressively by the party leadership, particularly Chairman Chung Cheong-rae. But there are growing concerns within the party that an all-out reform drive could alienate moderate voters, while slowing down could anger the party's core base. And layered onto that are economic pressures such as volatile housing prices and currency fluctuations, which Han addressed immediately following his election, pledging to show tangible results and improve people's livelihoods.
We'll be following what happens next this week and also on the coming months. Hwacheon, thanks so much for the coverage tonight.
Thank you for having me.
The Iranian government shut down internet access and jammed Elon Musk's Starlink service over the weekend to crack down on protesters. Now, meanwhile, the U.S. slapped economic sanctions on countries doing business with Iran. Cha Yoon-kyung has the latest.
The Iranian government shut down internet access and jammed Elon Musk's Starlink service over the weekend to stop protest videos from going global. Since Iranians rely heavily on Starlink to share videos of growing protests, the authorities began searching and confiscating Starlink dishes in western Tehran, said Amir Rashidi, director of digital rights and security at a U.S. nonprofit opposed to internet censorship. The government has also made it difficult to make calls or send text messages. Video from the streets is one of the few ways of getting information out about the scale of the protests and the actions of the Iranian authorities. More than 600 people have been killed in the unrest, according to the group Human Rights Activists in Iran. Another rights group circulated video footage on Sunday showing a large number of bodies at a morgue in South Tehran. However, due to the government's crackdown, the reduction ratio of Starlink's data traffic has reached 80% from 30%. In Washington, President Donald Trump says countries doing business with Iran will face a 25% tariff on trade with the U.S. in response to the deadly crackdown on anti-government protests. Trump also continued to warn that military action remains a possibility. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said on Monday that diplomacy is always the first option, but that airstrikes were on the table.
Diplomacy is always the first option for the president. However, with that said, the president has shown he's unafraid to use military options if and when he deems necessary, and nobody knows that better than Iran.
Large-scale protests and riots have shaken Iran for days. Security forces have responded with a lethal crackdown that activists say has killed hundreds or even thousands. Iranian authorities say dozens of security personnel have also been killed, though those figures are difficult to verify because of the nationwide internet blackout. Cha Yoon-kyung, Arirang News.
South Korea's benchmark KOSPI closed at a new all-time high on Tuesday, extending its New Year rally. Now, this time, auto shares climbed on optimism surrounding physical AI initiatives, with Hyundai Motor hitting a record high. Kim Jun-hong has the details.
The KOSPI pushed higher, ending the session at a record high. After swinging between gains and losses, the index finished at 4,692.64, up 1.47% on the day to extend its winning streak. Shares were lifted by optimism over new physical AI ventures. Korean auto giant Hyundai Motor's shares closed at 406,000 won, breaking above the 400,000 won level for the first time. The stock surged 10.63% in a single day and is now up to 36.9% so far this year. The recent gains reflect growing investor confidence in Hyundai Motor's push into AI robotics, showcased at the CES 2026. The automaker drew market attention by unveiling Atlas, a humanoid robot developed by its Boston Dynamics unit, in Las Vegas last week. Optimism over Hyundai's robotics and AI push also lifted key affiliates, with shares posting double-digit gains.
Hyundai Motor has been signaling a shift toward becoming a mobility company by expanding into autonomous driving and robotics. In particular, investor optimism over the growth potential of the bipedal robot industry appears to have driven the stock higher. The move reflects a broader shift as the auto industry continues to evolve into a mobility-focused sector.
Robotics optimism surrounding Hyundai Motor is lifting the market, though gains are rotating across sectors. Chip stocks are easing on profit-taking, while gains are being seen in sectors such as batteries, shipbuilding, and defense. Analysts say the rotation toward non-chip sectors is supporting expectations that the KOSPI may enter the 5,000 range in the first quarter. Kim Junong, Arirang News.
Gold prices raced to a record high on Monday, with February futures hitting $4,638 per ounce, up 3.1% from the day prior. Silver futures for March also hit an all-time high on the same day, as it surged 8.2% to $85.8 per ounce. Pundits are linking the latest rallies to market uncertainties, including the fate of the U.S. Federal Reserve. This past weekend, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell said the Justice Department had served the central bank subpoenas related to the renovation of its headquarters. Powell added that the move was politically motivated amid disagreements with the Trump administration over the interest rate decisions. One of the world's 4 largest winter festivals has officially kicked off here in South Korea. Recognized as a premier event not just in Asia but globally, the Hwacheon Sancheoneo Festival is back for another season of icy thrills. Our Jung Hae-rim tells us more.
Hundreds of people stand on a frozen river. They lower their fishing rods through holes in the ice, moving the bait slowly up and down. Eyes fixed on the water below, they wait for the pull. Moments later, mountain trout, known locally as Sancheoneo, is pulled from the ice.
They said in the announcements that you should lower the line slowly and pull it up quickly when you feel a bite. I caught 2 fish. I feel really happy.
This is a scene at the 2026 Hwacheon Sancheoneo Ice Festival, a world-recognized winter festival held in the remote mountains of Hwacheon-gun County, Gangwon-do Province. Here, visitors catch Sancheoneo, a trout species that lives only in clean, cold mountain streams. Families from across the country and around the world have come to try their luck on the ice.
In Malaysia, we don't have this kind of experience. So this is the first time we are coming here to Korea and come to the... first time also experiencing winter season. Although it's cold, but it's very fun.
Despite the cold weather, some participants take part in bare-handed fishing, where they plunge into an icy pool. A visitor caught this Sancheoneo with their bare hands just moments ago in the pool behind me. Here in Hwacheon, more than 300,000 square meters of ice have been transformed into a massive playground. Beyond fishing, visitors can enjoy other various winter events, including sledding, ice skating, and bobsleigh rides. To ensure a successful festival, officials say 150 tons of trout were released into the river this year. However, safety remains the top priority.
We conduct inspections of the ice thickness, its strength, and even the water level beneath the floating ice, and determine how many people can safely enter the site based on the results.
Nearly 2 million people have visited this festival over the past 3 years, and more foreign media outlets have dubbed the event one of the 7 winter wonders of the world, drawing tourists eager to experience this unique winter culture firsthand. The excitement continues here in Hwacheon until February 1st. 정혜림, Arirang News, Hwacheon.
All the snow clouds have cleared now, but colder air is settling in, and gusty winds will make it feel even colder. Temperatures will continue to plunge through tomorrow morning, reaching minus 10 degrees Celsius, and cold wave advisories are in place nationwide. Even though skies stay mostly clear, dry weather advisories remain along the East Coast. With strong winds added to the mix, there is a higher risk of wildfires, so please be extra precautions. Many areas will have a freezing morning tomorrow, with Seoul and Daejeon at minus 9 degrees, Gwangju at minus 4 degrees. Seoul will rise up to just 1 degree even during the day, while Daegu will reach 7 degrees. Looking ahead, the cold snap will slowly ease off starting from tomorrow afternoon. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.